Wootstick Reviews.
Jeanne D'arc is a tactical RPG that is inspired by historical events that took place in France during the 1400s. A teenage girl gets a message from God to save France and coronate Charles VII. This game at its core foundation parallels history. The character hears God through a magical armlet, she leads the Dauphin to be coronated. The locations in the game are the same. Everything else? Yeah, not historically accurate. If you're looking to this game for History of Joan of Arc 101, you've come to the wrong place. In this game there are talking lions, talking dogs, magical goblins, spell transformations into holy entities, magical armlets, random characters that never existed in real life, and so on. If you're a history nut, you might be frustrated at how incredibly inaccurate this game is in retelling a historical event. It didn't bother me because I knew it was a fantasy tactical RPG and the creators weren't striking for realism. That being said, let's move on to the game itself. The game has received generally favorable reviews. On IGN it scored a whopping 9 out of 10, which if you're not familiar with IGN, that's a pretty high review. Personally, I think it's an overrated game. I didn't enjoy it as much as other people did. I'll go over all the problems I had with the game, starting with the gameplay. The first tactical RPG I ever played was Final Fantasy Tactics, and it has ruined pretty much every game in that genre for me. Final Fantasy Tactics was a masterpiece. One of my favorite parts about the game was the customization. In Jeanne D'arc, customization is both linear and simplistic. When you kill an enemy, they have the potential to drop a skill stone, such as a fireball. You equip that skill stone, and one of your characters can then cast fireball. The problem is that, for one, there's not nearly as many skills as Final Fantasy Tactics. Second, the ability to swap roles is pretty restricted to a few characters. Characters like Liane have an above average magic damage rating compared to other characters like, let's say, Ragier. So you're going to stick with magical stones with Liane and more attack-centric abilities for Ragier. At 10 to 15 hours into the game, each character will have maybe 3 or 4 abilities. That's not a lot of variety. Considering there's not a lot of reason to level up and farm for stones, you don't really reach the full potential of abilities. Another criticism is the imbalancing of the game. I mean that in regards to 2 different aspects. First, it's very easy to become underleveled. I found my level spread at one part of the game to be between 15 to 35. The reason it's so easy to underlevel one character is because some of the battles will require 4 characters, some will require 7, some require 5. Certain characters get left out, and in that one battle, you can level a character 3 or more levels, outshining all the other characters you didn't pick for the battle. My second complaint in regards to balancing is that you can transform into a powerful entity for the characters that possess the armlets. When you transform, you gain all your hit points back, you dish out way more damage, and when you kill an enemy, you get another turn. When you transfer back to your normal self after a couple of turns, you regain all your hit points again. This creates a game that's so emphasized around transformation that it steals away from a lot of the tactical elements in the game. Not only that, but if you transform your main character and you're able to kill 5 enemies in one turn, that character outlevels the other characters. But when it's so convenient, you'll find yourself using the transformation to destroy the entire field of enemies, which underlevels the other characters. This leads me to my next complaint. The game doesn't make it easy to level up the underlevel characters. If you're behind 3 to 5 levels, that character dies in a couple hits and can barely damage the enemy. So your only option is to go to the underleveled battlefields, spend 20 to 30 minutes, and maybe increase the level by 1 or 2. You'll be thinking, yeah, screw that, I'll just play with the characters that aren't underleveled. Oh, what's that? Jeanne leaves your party temporarily and you're stuck with a level 12 Liane? Oh crap. Another complaint is the fact that you can't use abilities in the game right away. It takes anywhere between 2 to 4 turns to use all the abilities in your arsenal. What happens is your character will start out with 0 magic point, and as you use up a turn, your character will gain, let's say 30 magic points per turn. So 2 rounds have passed before you're finally able to use any useful abilities at all. The problem with this is that it restricts the first 5 minutes of a battle to melee attack only. The reason they have this restriction is for balancing purposes. If you have full access to your abilities round 1 of the game, the battles would be significantly easier. So instead of the company taking the time to balance the game in other ways, they decided to restrict the use of abilities. In my opinion, it's a very restrictive, lazy way of balancing the game. Those are my main arguments to the gameplay. But when the majority of the game is fighting on the battlefield, these shortcomings stand out quite a bit. Let's jump into the storyline. Let's ignore the fact that it's meant to parallel real history. The story is plain. You find a soldier with a magical armlet. The armlet speaks to Jeanne. Your village burns. You take on the English and try to save France. There's literally no character development. They attempt to throw a small love triangle between some of the characters, but you have no investment in any of these characters, so you don't care. There's the main character, then there are the supporting characters who just follow her because she has the armlet. The only motivation in the game to exist is just to save France. The characters have no ulterior motives. They have no personalities. They have nothing that engages the gamer. Even the antagonist of the game is linear. If you think on Final Fantasy Tactics, and every character in that game has a role, no one character is inherently good or inherently evil. Every character is multifaceted, and that's what creates such a great game. This game simply doesn't have it. Before I end the review, I will run over the things I did like about this game. The graphics are beautiful for a PSP game. The cutscenes are entertaining to watch. The battle environments have a lot of variety. I know I spent so much time criticizing the gameplay, but maybe it's just these type of games in general, but it's still addictive to slowly level up your characters and acquire new abilities. Even if the game does not even come close to the Final Fantasy Tactics standard, the game is good enough to play till the end. Overall, it's not a game that will leave a memorable impression, but it will be fun. I give this game a 7 out of 10.